right, so I titled this "Expect More from Your Website." Um, this is really, I kind of wanted to title that because I think people don't understand the value that the website people have. Um, there's actually a lot to it. Your website should be your asset. So you want to make sure that you're actually utilizing your website the best you can for your business now more than ever. Um, it really comes down to you can't just have a pretty website and hope it functions. There's a lot more to it in the back end of things. So I was hoping with this webinar to really kind of educate people how much your website value can be to you, how much it can actually help your business. So first thing we're going to kind of go over, um, my goal is to help you succeed. So after all of this, even after, if you have any questions, I will actually talk to you one-on-one free consultation to see what your business goals are and see what I can do to help, or at least point you the right direction. These are some of the services that I offer. Big thing is responsive web design. I really am big on that. I'm actually going into that quite a bit of what responsive website is. Website hosting, as far as there's a lot more than just website hosting. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of different options depending on your business size, what's best for you. Domain management is a lot of things. A lot of people are already pretty familiar with that. Just managing your domains themselves through GoDaddy. Make sure you actually the name of your website.com and renew that every year as necessary. Don't let that lapse. Another thing on domain management I'll kind of get into a little bit is make sure you purchase a few years in advance. Don't just renew it once every year. It's actually, Google looks at how long you plan on being in business. So if you actually purchase out a few years later, is better for Google and search results later. Copywriting, a little bit of that is, CEO type purposes. I'll kind of get into that a little more. Any consulting I went over. WordPress, I'm a huge WordPress fan. Anything as far as full development, just a few plugins, doing something simple on WordPress. It's an incredibly powerful platform for any size business, really. Email marketing, I use Constant Contact. It's a huge tool that a lot of businesses don't utilize, and they should. Website maintenance, anything from small changes, text, pricing, email on your website, things like that. Search engine optimization, I'll go into a little bit, and content delivery solutions are kind of tied into web hosting, but there's more to it than that, and it's pretty new over the last few years. So the idea here is these are the things we'll be going over. It's about engaging users on your website. So it's not about people don't like you, they just don't know about your website and you're not being found in search results. Be sure your website has the clientele for the businesses that you want to attract. So it's a lot about the text, not just putting text in your website. It's really fine-tuning the value of each section of your page and every page of your website. So another one is keep customers from leaving your website. Similar to engage your users. Text, the colors, text easy on the eyes, is it mobile friendly, responsive? Do you have any bullet points for your main topics? Should I go into custom or DIY with my website? A lot of that comes down to your own personal business. And of course, budget, because I know, understand, DIY is a lot cheaper than custom, but there's pros and cons of that. So it's not best to just jump in just because you saw an ad, for Squarespace, something like that. It's good to know your options on that. And web hosting explain, I'll go a little bit into those details, not too much, because it can be overwhelming. And then WordPress plugins, as I mentioned, a lot of customers that join actually have WordPress. So there's some that I recommend you don't want to have, you don't want to use at all, and some that are highly beneficial that you may find useful for your own websites. A little bit about who I am. So I've been doing this really since '99 when I first got started. Kind of my own coding HTML website. I was immediately hooked into it. So being with my dad, being he did a lot of woodworking, things like that, being self-employed, I knew that this is right out of high school. It's something I wanted to do. So I've managed websites and clients that have a lot of traffic. There's one that had over 1 million hits a day per page. So I have a really good idea on type of really monetizing traffic. When you have big numbers on a web page, you can really figure out and do A/B testing and figure out what works, what doesn't. So my experience has taught me from working with these big companies, the value your website has, and you may not even know that it has that value. So getting into it. First, you want to engage your users. And what that really is about is you want to answer clients' questions. So for instance, let's say a customer is searching on Google and they put in a Google search, they come to your web page. If they're not actually able to have that question answer that they found on Google that actually brought them to your page, they're going to leave. You actually have on average 4.2 seconds to get their attention before the customer will leave your site. The average bounce rate for someone leaving a web page is about 42%. If you can be around that range or below, you're doing great. A lot of websites actually have an average of 80 to 90% bounce rate. And what that means is the customer comes to your page, within 4 seconds, they've already left because our attention span is so short, we want to move on, find what we're looking for. It's also good to keep track of those questions. I kind of get into that more down below, but you want to actually see what people are asking and what your actual clients are asking. So what that may be on your website, for instance, let's say you sell napkins or something like that. If they want to know different questions about those napkins. So you want to make sure that every single question is actually answered. A lot of websites, they just kind of put up a page, they put up space and text, but it's not actually engaging the user to stay on your web page or to keep them interested to get into more details. Invest in design. You don't want to have really just a basic web page and hope that they convert. There's a lot more to it. You can actually monetize and make sure every page or website is actually utilized the best possible way. It's another thing on that is provide a wow factor. A lot of the DIY websites, they're great. It's a great starting point, but a lot of them look so similar, and you've seen that kind of layout before somewhere else. How does that's not going to stand out to someone that's just surfing the web, and especially as many web pages that we look at on a day-to-day basis. Utilize Google Analytics or any kind of tracking software similar to that. That's huge. There's so many companies that have first installed Google Analytics tracking on their web page, but they're not actually looking at the data that's collecting. There's a number of clients I have that, I tell them, well, this is not working on this page, and they had no idea about the data was actually being collected and what they could do to monetize and really know what their website's all about and see why people are coming there. What are they searching for to find your website? Because you can really fine tune and funnel people through your website effectively, and you can make it work for you. The search option on your website, it's really important if your website has more than, I would say, probably 8-10 pages, you could have a search page on there. It also depends how much content is on your pages. Not every website can utilize a search option. But what's really cool about search option on your web page, if you do have multiple pages, there's plugins to actually log in WordPress, for instance, what people are searching for. And that is the most accurate as far as analytics you can get. It's more accurate than Google Analytics because they're directly on your website searching for a product on your website. So if they can't find that product that they're searching in your search result, obviously you need to either add a page for it so people can find it, or maybe you don't even offer that product. You can even mention that because that still has SEO value, bringing people to your website. So continuing this, we've got post valuable content often. So often websites kind of get lost and what I call, it's called sandboxed in Google. If you don't have valuable content and post it often, such as a blog, something like that would come in value, your website will eventually kind of drop off in the search results. You want to make sure that you have new content and really fine tune. A blog is great for that, for specific pages on a specific question, on a specific topic, whatnot. So that's really important. That doesn't work for every website. Not every website needs a blog. And I'll even get into that. A blog's can actually hurt your website if you don't plan on updating it. Chat with your users. So I'm sure a lot of people have seen the new chats on websites. Very bottom right corner, typically there's a little tiny chat option. and you can either click it and you can start a live chat with someone right away, or there's even AI ones, like a smart one where actually a computer bot will actually try to talk to you on there. Those are getting incredibly popular. I've actually recently done a search last few weeks and found there's tons of third-party companies that offer these to add in addition to your website. Some are very expensive. A lot of them start about $10 a month, all the way up to $150 a month, depending on what you need. But you wouldn't believe how effective these actually become. It's on Amazon, for instance, 37% of users use these chatbots chatting with the sales guy on Amazon.com, and 37% complete the sale through these chatbots. Websites are not even really utilizing them yet, especially small business ones. A lot of them, it's really cool. We're so used to texting on our phones anyway, it'll actually send a text directly to your phone no matter where you are, and you can chat with your users instantly. If you're within a few seconds, you can actually typically answer their questions very fast, and you can convert that sale with your customers. Again, that's one of these things that's a personal preference if you want to be bothered from your chat, but you can set schedules to not bother you at certain hours a day and whatnot. Be real with your photos. This is about when you create a website, you don't want to use just all royalty-free stock images. People are smart nowadays. And we can easily see if that's a real photo, that's a fake photo. So you think about it, you go into a website, if you see just a bunch of royalty-free photos, you're not as likely to be engaged on that website. So you might as well use real photos of you and be real with people. If you get in touch with people, that personal connect you don't want to lose that through a website. You can still have that personal connect. Fast page loading times. So this is a big one. This is probably the main topic that hurts most traffic to websites. If your website loads slow, you may think just a few seconds, 6 seconds of a page loading time is fast. That's actually considered incredibly slow. And 80% of people will actually leave the website if it's longer than six seconds. So you have to have those pages load incredibly fast. And there's a lot to it. It's not just a simple changing a few things. It can get complex. It's about how much code is on your web page, how large are the images. JavaScript is a type of loading on websites. Those are highly intensive, use a lot of data. You don't want too many plugins in your WordPress. That'll actually just means more code has to load on every single page and just slows everything down. There's a use of CDNs, which I'll get in a little bit more. CDN stands for Content Delivery Network, and that's a way to serve images, JavaScript, videos through a whole other network of servers. It's a network, a cluster of servers that are all connected depending on where you are in the world. So we'll get into that a little bit more later. Next is use call to action text. We've all seen at the very top of a page, you should have some kind of call to text. You want to actually have like a clickable button, something to direct the user to go somewhere in the web page. You want to funnel them. If you don't, you should see this on banners, for instance. It'll kind of have a little bit of text and something to kind of get you to want to click it. Call to action text is often missed at the top header of websites. So you want to make sure you are engaging the user and use different tactics. If you just search call to action text ideas on Google, you'll get a ton of different words that do work for some websites, and all depends on certain industries, but it is important to use. A responsive design. So this is likely one of the most important things I offer for all new clients and all new designs. It's something I started about 4 years ago when responsive was really getting started. Google actually gives higher value to websites that are responsive and that do load fast. If your web page is kind of outdated from years ago, you were not likely to be rated at all in search traffic. So responsive is probably one of the most common things. It basically will, no matter what device you're on, it will automatically adjust to that device, and will have the same user experience if the user is looking at your website on mobile, and then later that day they're looking at it on their desktop computer, which is easier now with Chrome, Safari. They actually sync, so you can actually look at each one on the same website you're looking at day on any device that syncs between them. So responsive, that's why it's so important. It's kind of one of these things that they give this user the same user experience no matter what device they're on. is kind of an example of one that I did. This is the before, and then here's an after that I did. This isn't really showing it. This is on a desktop screen, how it looks like, but you can see just how much cleaner and professional the one on the right looks, I think. You can even look at it yourself if you want to meadowgreenfarm.com. And this one will look great on your mobile phone, desktop, iPad, whichever device you'd like. So this is an example of the same website, how it would look depending on your device. So it changes based on the orientation and size of your screen. That's what responsive does. It used to be back then, everything was it was called table design. You used to have tables and everything was kind of fixed. So you had to have set designs. Those days of tables are gone. This is the percentage of people that actually want mobile. So you want to make sure you're mobile friendly. 72% of people want mobile friendly websites. 77% of people own a smartphone. So that's up 50% since 2012. So I'd imagine that's just going to keep growing. More and more people are getting devices now, and less people are using desktop devices. We definitely love our phones. It's increased 12% since 2010, excuse me. So most people are on mobile, so you definitely want to make sure your website looks great on mobile. And responsive web design is becoming incredibly popular. Again, it's fairly new. It's only been around the last few years, really kind of pushed, and Google has been pushing it more for developers to start using responsive. So that's why more and more people are understanding what responsive web design is. So here's a quick recap what we just spoke about. Answer your client's questions and keep track of questions. Invest in your design. Utilize Google Analytics. Make sure you use the search option on your website. Keep logs. Basically, not just having a search, but use logs on your website to see what people are actually searching on your website. Use responsive design. Make sure you have valuable content. You want to be able to chat with your users. That's becoming very popular. So you want to make sure that you have those. Excuse me, someone's coming in real quick. Chat with your users. Be real with your photos. You want to have fast page load times. We'll get into that a little bit more. And then use call to action text on banners at the top of your website. Really direct the user. Where do you want them to go? By the way, too, I wanted to mention, if anybody has any questions about something I went over, you can write those questions in the webinar. You'll just see a Zoom webinar chat. So any questions that come up, you can write those questions, and at the end of this, I will go through those. But I know it's a lot to kind of go over, can be a little overwhelming. Let's see, random internet statistics. These are some really cool things I thought just were fascinating to me. Thought other people might find them fascinating as well. As of April 5th this year, there were 29 million people, 29,000 or 29 million websites currently using Google Analytics. This is how many websites are actually on the net. The last data I've taken was in January, and just almost 1.3 billion. That's a lot of websites out there. So you got to stand out. That's a lot of people that are coming online. Average time spent on websites nowadays, people spend about 10 hours per day online. So it's kind of sad we get more time in the internet than we do sleep. All right, next topic. Keep customers from leaving your website. And this can be similar to engaging users, the previous chapter kind of talked about. But this is just as equally important. So I want to kind of go over these little few details that you can do on your own websites. Don't do this. So we all remember the MySpace days, I'm sure. Remember when you used to have automatically playing music on your page? You don't want to do that anymore. It's actually pretty annoying to people. So there used to be some web pages that actually kind of played automatic music as soon as you load on the page. That's kind of a big thing that people will leave nowadays. If the web page is too long, that's kind of especially now people are using mobile. You want to make sure that you don't have the page so long that your finger will get tired scrolling down the page, something like that. So you want to make sure that the page is so much content. An average website page has about 500 words. That's kind of the minimum you want to do. You can definitely have more than that, but just make sure it's structured well. Long page loading time, that's similar we spoke about before. You have 6 seconds, people will leave. The faster website loads, the better. There's a lot to that, so it's not one of these just fast fixes. It's something I kind of go over a little bit more. An isolated page, and what that is you have, let's say you're navigating through a website and then there's no navigation at the top or the bottom, and all of a sudden you can't get back to where you were before. You can't easily navigate through the website. You don't want to have a page that's isolated in that. The only time that comes in handy is, let's say you're using a sales funnel. You want them to get to the sales page. You want them to complete the sale, and they can only move forward from there. That's the only time you want to use those. But otherwise, make sure your website doesn't have that. Expired information, and this is what I was talking about earlier with the blogs. You want to make sure you actually have updated content. It can't look like your website was updated years ago. That's a huge thing that'll just turn people off. If they see a website, it looks dated, they're going to think, well, they don't care. That's the first impression they'll get is, oh, if the website's dated, that means they're probably not paying attention to their own business or something. Blogs are notorious for that. So when you first started a blog, 4 years ago, you had intentions of updating it, but then life got busy and you no longer touch it. So then people go to your website and they see it was last updated years ago. That's not a really good first impression. So you want to make sure it stays updated. And if it's not going to stay updated, you can basically, you don't want to lose the value of those pages, but you can hide those pages from the main web page and then direct those old pages to your main page if it's not something you want to do a complete redesign. Or you can even redirect those old pages. There's ways of setting those to be a redirect so you don't lose that traffic that those pages may be getting. You can redirect it. Slowly it'll die off, but you don't want to lose the value and just close it down if at all possible. So you don't want the customer to leave. So these are a few things that you can do, just things to keep in mind if you're doing your own web page. Keep in mind the colors that you use. Obviously, anything that's bright, bright pink, things like that, those are going to be a turnoff for most people. It kind of depends on the type of website, your type of business. This isn't a one size fit all. There's certain colors you definitely want to avoid. It used to be, black backgrounds with white text used to be popular. Nowadays, you'll see more of a gray background, black text, where it's much easier on the eyes if it's black text in most cases, with a little bit of off-white background so it's not blinding to your eye. Especially late at night, people are looking at websites on their phones. Any bright light, you don't want it to be too bright of a white. Use bullet points. This really comes down to, if you just have a bunch of paragraph text, it's hard for you to really get down to understand what the page is about. So it's best to use bullet points. People want to know specifically points about your business. So, get to those main points. Use of testimonials are great. Everyone likes, if you go to a web page that has no third-party, descriptions, and it's just someone just voicing their opinions, you don't understand how much value that would have. So use of testimonials, you don't want to just throw them all in one place, but ran it through web pages. I always say a minimum of 3 when you're starting out, and hopefully you get more Google reviews. Encourage that from your customers. But add those to your website. Google does not have an easy way to have them. I get this question quite a bit. All the reviews are on Google to actually have those show on your website instantly. They don't have an easy way for developers to grab those, that data. So a lot of it has to be done manually still. It is being worked on as far as I know. White space is good. So you don't want to have too much content on a page. Everyone's kind of over that newspaper kind of idea where it's just a ton of content, a lot of pictures, a lot of things going on. You want to make sure that you have a lot of balance between white space and then text between it, so the page doesn't look too busy. Clean navigations that's a big pet peeve of mine. When you're at the top of the page, you want to make sure it's super easy to navigate through all the pages that you want. There's certain websites that I'm sure a lot of people understand this. You click on it and then there's a drop down, and you try to navigate around, and then all of a sudden the drop down disappears, and you have to go up there again. You have to go to the navigation, and the drop down happens, and it's sometimes frustrating to even click on a link. So you want to make sure those little things are thought through, and the user experiences. You test your websites to make sure it works well for if an average user were to go to your website. And look at those on mobile as well. A lot of times people just look at the desktop when it's first developed. It works great on the desktop. But then you get to your mobile device and you have the little drop down, those three little lines. Sometimes they don't work as well on mobile. So you want to make sure you test those. Use large quality photos on your website. This is a big one for me. Whenever I'm developing websites, I think the biggest problem I have, the biggest hurdle is quality photos. A lot of people have, maybe some old photos from years ago from with their older phone, and those are just not going to do it. I mean, you want to have a quality website. So photos, the text, that's what's going to stand out when people come to the website in the first point. So if it's blurry, if it's, faded in some way, the colors aren't good in the photo, that's really not going to be a good first impression. There's a thing on that though. You want to make sure that you're optimized. So if you have a huge image, and it can be tricky. I have these large images on my own website, and they're so large, you want them to load quickly. So it's that balance you have to find of not too large, but large enough where it looks great on any device and it's optimized. So there's that fine point where that full image can be optimized to be to not lose quality, because if you optimize it too much, you actually lose quality of that photo. Also, make sure you name those images a certain, if you just take and upload to your website and it's named 00, DSC, Google's not going to know what that image name is. So you need to name those images. If it's a picture of a field and a truck, name it grass field _ truck, something like that. So those actually file name can be searched later. However, Google is working on an option, they've already had it, where Google can actually read images now. It can actually scan an image and figure out what is in that image. That's coming along further. Some more websites will actually be able to search images, and that's how you can search images on Google as more of that technology is coming along. So I'm not going to get into SEO too much because that's a whole other topic in itself, but I do want to touch base on it a little bit. Google search engines, there's two algorithms they use to actually be listed on Google, and it's called Penguin and Panda. It's basically what they call it. Basically, Panda targets the low quality websites, so anyone with poor page architecture, such as non-responsive, dirty code, too much code where the page takes too long to load, or a ton of code is not even being utilized, not even needed on your website. And then it also, Penguin identifies those that have poor backlinks, and backlinks are any links to and from, backlinks are usually to your website. So if you don't have any links to your website at all, how is Google, when it searches the net, it's kind of like a popularity contest, I call it. More websites you have linking to your website, it means you're the popular one. So you want to make sure that you actually have value on those backlinks and any links coming to your website. Rankings matter. So if Google's not a fan of your website, the chance of a customer finding you through an organic search means any search you find, it's on the right, on the left side. They're likely not going to find you if your website hasn't been optimized in any way, or if it hasn't been updated in years. You're probably not going to be found very easily. It's use of titles on pages, meta descriptions. Meta descriptions don't have as much value as they used to, and those are some at the very top of every page where you used to put in the keywords that people might search to find that page. Older search engines still use those. Bing still uses it, but Google not as much anymore. And Google is the giant. Pretty much, I believe that's 80%, something like that, of all searches are through Google. So that's where you want to focus on. Keyword research, your local markets and inbound links. So this can be really helpful. So with SEO, you want to find those keywords that people are not utilizing. So the big companies, they're looking at those big, they have the funds when the SEO comes to really as a broad range of keywords to target. But think about all the small keywords that they're probably not even targeting. There's a ton of, you really have to do research on your own business. So how would people find you? And so basically you can optimize those web pages on your site for those specific keywords to really get more traffic on those niche type keywords, I call them. This is some fun facts. So Google prioritizes responsive websites. So if you have a responsive website, that you're already one step ahead. That's one of the main things they look at. 50% of total e-commerce sales now come from phone or tablet device. So that number I imagine will continue to grow. 5,000 domain names are registered every hour. So domain name is, name.com, loveland.org is one, google.com, etc. The first email ever sent was in 1971. There are 250 billion emails sent every day. I'm sure a lot of those are spam. And 96 million photos are uploaded on Instagram every day. So that's a lot of data. So here's the pros and cons of a DIY website. So I kind of want to get into a few details. So DIY website is basically like Squarespace, Weebly, Wix, any of those where the average user can pretty much just drag and drop to get a website started. The pros, they're very inexpensive, often free. Weebly, I know, has some free plans where, however, there's ads shown on there. So it's free, but that's at a cost. So if you're a true business, obviously you wouldn't want to show ads for other businesses, you direct them somewhere else. Another thing is Weebly actually has set, so if on their free plan, you don't get your actual own domain name. It's something like yourbusinessname.weebly.com. So it's actually under Weebly, it's a subdomain of Weebly, and that's not going to help your business. Pros, you can create the entire website yourself with minimal overhead. Cons, it can be difficult or even impossible to import to their platforms. So I have a lot of clients that are on DIY, and they want to take that and move over to a hosted platform that I do. However, the platform that's on those other ones are not always easily imported to be able to expand. The reason you want to go custom typically is because you can expand to a lot more. You're not limited to anything as far as templates. So that's the only drawback. A lot of times you have to start fresh, new design. You can launch your website quickly. Working with a web developer can take longer. So that's definitely true. So you can probably launch a website within a couple of days yourself. Whereas a web developer right now, I'm swamped. So I tell people I'm at least a few weeks out to start. And even a project that gets started can take a few weeks. It depends on how complex it is. A lot of times I have faster turnaround, but it all depends on a lot of values, and it's just me, and I have a full-time designer. But other developed sites, it still can take longer. However, it's customized to you. So it's not just a template design and one size fits all. Next option. So pros, plenty of industry businesses, templates available. That's absolutely true. There's tons of templates that you can choose from on a lot of DIY websites. A lot of the times, however, they're duplicated. With as many websites out there, you're going to be using the same template. And so the odds of your website template standing out are slim. You'll notice probably right away that it's a Squarespace or a Weebly type website. Your site will be indexed with search engines. However, studies have shown that SEO is lacking on DIY website templates. So many sites with a similar layout will have a lower ranking on search engines. So it's kind of harder. You have to do a little more work on those to actually get ahead compared to on a hosted platform with your own code. Pros, you can make changes at any time yourself. Studies have shown those with DIY websites update less than those that have the website. And that's typically what I found is the bigger companies can afford someone, always have on staff and updates their site. Pros, I can add inbound links and outbound links on my website. So it's absolutely true. CEO website companies will not work with DIY websites because of limitations. So just know that if it's something that you want to be able to expand on a DIY website in the future, and you wanted to hire an SEO pro that just kind of really helps each page, they're limited on what they can do. So it's kind of tough to continue working to get more traffic on a DIY website compared to a custom because there are so many limitations. Here are some of the benefits of a custom web design. So you acquire the experience. So that's really a big one. I've been doing this for a number of years. I've a number of websites I can see what works and what does not. And you get that expertise of, even on different industries, I've worked in many different industries, and you really get the experience of what I've seen without you having to worry about it yourself. So I can give a lot of feedback. Quick changes. So my turnaround time is typically 3 days. If someone submits something, they need something done. I say max of 3 days. Unless I go on vacation, I let people know. I do have a full-time designer. I let him know if I'm out of town. but it's usually pretty quick, and those are customers of mine know that. I help with the entire process. So from start to finish, I will actually kind of help you put together the entire process of what I need to first start all the way through the end, and working through you throughout the process and making and testing, seeing what works, what doesn't, things like that. No templates. So I used to use templates. When I first started out, I actually used templates on websites through WordPress. You'll see there's tons of templates out there. I've learned through experience though, that's for SEO purposes, it's not the way to go. It's cheaper upfront cost, but the code, there's so much extra code in there that's not necessary for template designs, or maybe the images were not optimized because an average designer is not looking at those details. Use of AX and UI. So that can be pretty complex. I don't want to get into it too much because there's a lot of data on that. But UX and UI is basically user experience on those pages, basically navigation, the colors. And I kind of went through the clean code. You don't want to have too much extra code. So this is my process on a web design, content design, and I build test. That's kind of the same option, and then I launch. Finally, we go through the process and launch website. So in many cases, the website is great for your business, but it may not be best for search engines. I would love to hear anyone else's thoughts that have a DIY website. What is your experience with that? Maybe you've been able to get search traffic through those. If you have any questions, do let me know. So this is kind of some interesting facts. The internet went live in August of '91. Facebook was born in February of 2004. Can't believe it's been around that long. And February of 2005 is when a few college guys developed YouTube. And later, Google bought them out. So they're probably multimillionaires now. And then where we are at today, there are a ton of bytes of data created every day with over 40,000 searches every second on Google. So just a few little details I want to get into on web hosting explained. So again, this can be kind of complex. I'm not going to get into the details too much, but basically there's dedicated web hosting. And what that is a few notes on that too. Dedicated web hosting is really, it's your own server. So you're the only one on that server. There's nobody else that shares the server resources with you, but some web hosts say they'll actually do all the updates as far as the software, the database for you. Other hosting providers will not. You're in charge 100%. So you just basically lease the server itself and you're in charge of maintaining it. Cloud web hosting is fairly new. It's only been around the last few years and getting a lot more popular lately. But it's basically a ton of cluster web servers around the world serving the same content. So instead of being a dedicated where everyone's connection is connecting to one server in the world, a cloud web hosting server may have hundreds of thousands of cloud servers around the world. And it's scalable. So let's say 1 week, you're expecting a ton of traffic through your website, you have to have millions and millions of traffic. And you could actually add more servers to reduce the load on all these servers across the world. Your website would load faster. And it's scalable back. Let's say the next week, you don't need that anymore. It would actually scale back to what you were previously. Managed web hosting is what I offer for all my clients. It's basically the best of both worlds above. I basically have dedicated web servers, cloud web hosting servers. And so to manage that cost, I have a ton of clients to help offset those costs. So you get the best of those worlds. And to offset the cost, I have a lot of clients to help me to grow bigger and add more servers. If you want to manage it yourself, a virtual private server is a good way to do that. A virtual private server is basically a slice of the pie of a dedicated web server. So let's say you basically have one dedicated web server, but you could have hundreds of clients on that web server, but they all have their own private space and access to it. The pros and cons of that are it's kind of a problem if you're all sharing the same hardware. So if something happens to that server itself, all those hundreds of sites are down at the same time simultaneously. So that's the only drawback of a virtual private server. But there's other ways around it. It's called load balance servers. You could actually have virtual private servers, but load balance means there's maybe 2 or 3 servers also in there. So if one server goes down, you're still serving the other 2 server clusters. CDN means Content Delivery Network. This is really getting big. It's actually the main source of revenue for Amazon is CDN. I'm sure you've heard of their cloud service. That's how they got so big as Amazon Cloud Network. So basically, it's similar to cloud hosting above, but it only serves certain types of content. So usually videos, JavaScript, images, certain types of code, HTML. So it can't serve all types of content, especially like database content. It can't serve a database as separate as far as the data, but it makes it super fast. There's actually hundreds of CDNs in Denver. So when you're actually visiting websites that are utilizing content delivery networks, wherever you are in the world, it'll find the closest server near you. So the data transfer from a page loading is super fast. So that's really it on the server part of it. I know I don't want to get too much in that because it's overwhelming. So here are some WordPress plugins. These are some plugins that I highly recommend from my own personal experience. A lot of these, if anybody has WordPress here, has probably heard of some of these. Yoast SEO is a big one for SEO purposes. It's a great plugin for WordPress because it has it basically has a ton of options built into it. There's a paid version of it, but even the free version of it offers a ton of options for you. Constant Contact, which is they're actually, I think their main office is here in Loveland. So I've been a member of them and partner, I think, since 2008. And I like Constant Contact. And recently they created a plugin in WordPress. So any contact form you have on your website, it'll actually grab those contact information and instantly put it in the Constant Contact system through your website form on your website. So it's very helpful you don't have to have them sign up to a form. If they just send you an email through your website, you can collect that email with their permission and to be able to send marketing emails to them later. This is a personal favorite of mine. That's the Advanced Custom Fields plugin. A lot of plugins. This one is one of my favorites because a lot of my clients, they want something specific to be able to update their website. Like they've used WordPress, but it's not super easy to update certain sections of your website. So this plugin is really neat in the back end. So in the admin part of the website, I can set certain sections for your front end where it's fixed areas. Let's say certain areas in your front end website, there's always the same image swapped out. It's the same size, but you just want to be able to swap it out based on seasons, things like that. Or certain text in certain areas of your website. The format stays the exact same. You just want to be able to swap it out and change it. So those basically make it the option of you just make it super easy in the back end to update your front end without having to know any of the WordPress code or change the formatting. It's consistent every time. W3 Total Cache plugin, that's kind of the same I talked about before, the CDN. It's just another CDN service that they use. But this plugin makes it super easy for you in WordPress for certain files or website to load through a CDN service. So your images, JavaScript, things like that, you can put in what's called buckets and total cache. It kind of walks you through a lot of the stuff, I set up for my clients and they just know it works efficiently. And then there's also the reports they get. If they just want to read the reports, it's really, it's as hands-on as you want to be with those. So a little bit more, these are the recommenders that I recommend to avoid. Pretty much any WordPress plugin that has access to your database, you don't want to use. And all four of these here are actually backup database type plugins. And a lot of times it's better to do backups server side, which means that the actual server itself does the backups and you don't have to use a plugin. But there are a couple of good backup plugins that I use through WordPress if people want to be able to make backups of their own site on their own local computers. I do have some clients that want that. So those four is recommended to avoid. And then there's three more below there: the Fuzzy SEO Booster, the Broken Link Checker, and Google Sitemap Generator, which a lot of people use the Google one, but it's actually not even it's not even created by Google, and it's not recommended. If you want to do the same thing as the Sitemap Generator, which websites should have, I recommend the Yoast SEO I talked about previously. So if you have a WordPress website, it's important to make sure you keep those plugins updated. So 75% of WordPress security loopholes are from plugins. And I've seen a couple of clients that do get hacked. What typically happens is a hacker will get in and be able to change the content on your pages depending on the permissions. So you may not even know it. You won't even notice it for a while. They're putting in small changes on your website, small code or linking to their own websites. and you may not even know it, and they're grabbing search traffic through your website. They're basically stealing your traffic, and then it's hurting your business without even knowing. So you do want to make sure WordPress and plugins are updated regularly. So you know, this is like some of our common services. It's managed web hosting, and then I also offer a website maintenance. G Suite email setup. That's basically, I use G Suite now for all emails for companies. I found it's super robust. They have the resources to make sure that all your website, all your emails be delivered to and from. And I set up all the records. There's email records you have to set up on the back end that most people don't even know about. GoDaddy is notorious for this. I have a ton of clients that were on GoDaddy and they wonder why their emails are not being delivered. And it's because the records were likely not set up. So once you set up those records on the back end, everything will work great. So let's answer some questions here. Let's see here. Q&A. So first question is, can a website have too many pages or be too busy? That depends. So too many pages, it's one of those things, you want to find that balance of, basically, you want to have that balance of images over a text, that sort of certain density between both. So to say it's too many websites, it all depends on your goals of your website. If it's a small business website, yes, you don't want to have too many pages. But if it's the idea is to have tons of content, blogs, things like that with different subject matter on each page, that's kind of what you want to go for. Recommend a not dark background or white text. So it used to be that a black background, for instance, and white text was okay. But nowadays, people are so used to reading it. It's better, they've done studies that it's better for your eyes if it's always a white or off-white background with black text or a dark gray text. It's easier on the eyes, and they found that people that done these studies, they're more likely to stay on your website if it's easy on the eyes, things like that. How long does it take for an average website to develop? So again, that kind of depends on how many pages you have. But for an example, a website that has, let's say, 8 pages, typically takes me a couple weeks, start to finish. And it all depends from the client too. If I'm getting, you know, the images I need back and forth, there's always that back and forth a little bit. Do colors matter on the type of site? Absolutely. So they found that if your website has anything to do with banks, money, things like that, green obviously makes you think of money. A lot of this is all subconscious. You don't even think about it on websites. Call to action text, for instance, a button on a website is always a yellow or red background, you know, causing some kind of action. So those are definitely important. If it's kind of blends in, if a call to action button, for instance, blends into the rest of the page, it's not going to stand out. People aren't going to see it. You're going to have a low expectancy of people actually clicking that link. Let's see. Another question I had is, let's see, are videos still used on websites? So absolutely, videos are becoming incredibly popular. It's especially like vlogs, which is kind of the new way of going about things. A vlog is basically a video type blog. So more and more people are, like for YouTube, for instance, have, instead of typing it out on a web page, they're actually doing video blogs. And they found that the interaction that people actually see on a website is so much longer, just because people actually like to view videos more than read text. The question is, how often should a website be updated? I recommend, say, if you have a blog, I always recommend my clients a minimum of once a month. You don't want it to die off. You want to have that new traffic. If it sits for too long, people are going to see that it's not being updated, and you'll lose that drop off there. So you definitely want to make sure you don't have that going on. How much is a Google Business email? So Google Business emails, I set up, Google charges $6 a month per email. That's just if you need, it's per email for your own domain. So you can have, you know, yourname.com through your business, and it's $6 a month per email. It includes all the back end, it's spam free. A lot of my customers that were on other platforms found there's no more spam. So their time spent going through emails is less. So it's definitely worth spending that money. They do have another plan where it's $10 a month per email. That's if you want the Google Business plan, where it has the Google Documents, Google Calendar, a lot more functions, and a lot of businesses use those type if you have many employees. Let's see here. Some more questions. Let's see. So another question is, why avoid broken link checker on WordPress? What's good to use about this? So a broken link checker on WordPress, what that is basically it looks through your web page and it finds any broken links that maybe your website is not linking to. There's other plugins that are better. So the broken link checker likely has some kind of security vulnerabilities to it. So that's why it was on that do not use list. But there are other plugins that are more verified. Look at the reviews, see if people are actually using it, so you can really understand if it's worth using that or not. There's always that risk. Sometimes there's a plugin I really want to use and I can't find another option. I do use that plugin, and then once I'm done with that task, I actually remove the plugin. That'll kind of help you out with that. So I think that's it. I don't know if anybody else has any more questions, but anything else to go over? Dixie, I appreciate you putting this together, and glad we had quite a turnout. Hope everyone found this helpful.
Thank you so much, Chuck. It was very valuable. My favorite was how often you should buy your domain name. I buy it every 10 years, and I didn't know that Google looked at that. So that was interesting.
Yeah, they do. So it's something they want to know how long you're in business. If you do it year to year, they put a specific score on that based on your rankings. So the longer you're able to do, the better.
Another thing, will you be sharing a slide with everybody who registered?
Yeah, I sure will. So basically what I'll be doing is having it set so I'll send out an email so everyone gets a live recording of this.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, anybody else have any more questions, or see if I missed any? Otherwise, I think that's it. If everyone doesn't mind, I actually have a short survey. When this video picture closes, it'd be great if you just click that link. I think there's 10 questions on there. Just take a quick little survey, it'd be helpful for me. Otherwise, I think that's about it. Hope everyone has a good day.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.